Hey guys, here's Alexander from Mantix. Happy to have you here today in order to provide you this deep insight, this analysis around the tech job employment market inside the United States of America. So yeah, basically in Mantix we scrape like millions of jobs every month. So the idea was to provide you a deep analysis inside this very specific tech employment market and more specifically the programming language market. All right, so here let's have a look on the past 6 months to see what happens, to see if we can find some emerging trends inside this market. All right, so here in this first graph, we can see the evolution in volume of job postings for different job types. Could it be front-end, back-end, full stack, DevOps, data engineering, data scientist, and embedded software development. So it's different kind of jobs, the most represented actually inside this job market, inside the job data sets. All right, so the first thing that we can see here is that indeed the front-end development is one of the most massive demands that we can see here, and which is increasing apparently from the last August and July. Of course, as you can see, in July, August, and beginning of September, there is less jobs that inside this current period, as basically we are hiring and jobs are less posted inside during the summer, of course, than in this current state of the year. And of course, here we are going to have a lot more jobs going on the last months. So here indeed the massive demand is about front end. But it could be interesting to have a look at other kind of jobs to see if we can find some other emerging jobs from which we can see an emerging demand. All right, so here we can see that full stack is quite demanded. It's quite stable also through time. There is less, of course, during summer, but through September to January, the idea it's a bit increasing, but it's almost the same. It's a bit like DevOps and also perhaps backend. So for those one, there is indeed demand. They are from the most represented, but it's quite stable through time. However, it's quite interesting to see that in data engineering and embedded software development, so for those two, we are going to select them. All right, here it's quite interesting to see that there is an increasing demand through time for this kind of job, data engineering and embedding software development. And for this one, for instance, it's like 4 or 5 times higher in this current January and February month than it is inside that it was during September and of course during the summer. You can see, of course, the data science job. Here it's also a bit increasing, but quite stable compared to the other one, data engineering and embedded software development. All right, let's have a look at the next graph here, and we can see here on the overall, on the last 6 months, the volume of jobs, depending on this different category. Of course, the front-end part is quite high, at almost the half of the data set is here about front-end. And here we have some more information about the technologies that we find inside those job postings. So the most represented in Python, then we have like SQL. Well, SQL is kind of a very specific technology, as you can be a Python developer and you would need to manipulate SQL. You could be a Java developer and you would need to manipulate SQL. So kind of very specific use case, but interesting to see that there is a high demand for these very specific skills. A lot less for NoSQL, which is indeed increasing, but in terms of volume, it's a lot less. So as we say, Python, Java, JavaScript, C#, C++ are the most indeed represented category of programming language that we can see on the job market. There is after that TypeScript, Swift, Ruby on Rails, NoSQL, etc. These kind of basically keywords and technologies that we find inside the job description. But there is indeed in Python, for instance, quite massive demand and an increasing demand apparently since, of course, since the summer, but it's like 2 or 3 times higher in this during January than it was in September. So it's quite interesting to see that it's going to be increasing in the next month, it seems. All right, and here we can see it during this pie chart, inside this pie chart, and for which basically we can see there is a massive demand in around Python, JavaScript, Java, etc. All right, so here we also drew kind of an interesting pie chart about the industry that were hiring these tech jobs inside of the United States. All right, so the first that we can see here is software development, which was to be anticipated, as basically most of the jobs in software development are indeed about companies inside this very specific industry. But there is quite surprising results if you just move this software development and just focus on the rest of it. So we can see here financial services is hiring a lot of indeed developer roles. So technology and information internet would be perhaps to gather inside this same category of software development. So yeah, the interesting result to see that financial services around 7% of the data set. Then we have retail, and then healthcare, and finally hospitality. So yeah, the key takeaway here would be to say that, all right, of course, software development would be the most represented, but just after that, we have kind of a huge demand in terms of financial services, retail, healthcare, and hospitality, which are indeed hiring a lot about these tech jobs. And here, through time, we can see basically the recruitments for those different sector, and of course financial services just after software development. I'm going to draw those one, and you can see that it's quite increasing. There are kind of here a low spot, but right now, since the beginning of November, it's quite increasing. It could be interesting to have a look also at hospitality, retails, healthcare, etc. So those one are indeed increasing through time. It's kind of interesting. All right, and finally, as I know that we have often this question basically about the kind of contracts, or let's say perhaps the kind of jobs you can have. Could it be remote, or should it be on site directly? And it's quite interesting to see that remote, it's only 13% of the data set. Global remote, it's like less than 1%. And basically, yeah, I thought it would be higher, but it seems that inside the job postings, remote is not that current for tech jobs. It's, in the United States, it's something like 1 to 10 jobs would include a remote position availability inside it. All right, so I hope it gives you some interesting insight about the tech employment market inside the United States of America. Stay tuned to get more of this analysis of jobs employment market if you want about using Matics.